right, this is exciting. So we get to have the opportunity to meet some great people. Most of you already know them, but you may not know them as well as you think you do. We're throwing out all the questions, and I'm just talking from the hip tonight. Just kidding. Don't worry. I am going to tell you that the next 2 weeks we have, this is our schedule. Next week is going to be Michael and Trey. Michael O'Brien and Trey Smith are going to be up here. Following that, we have Mark Davis all by himself. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We can ask him some hardball questions. And then to wrap this up, we're going to have Jeff and John. John, Aretha, Jeff, and Lois are going to be up here. And so, right? Okay. So just making sure that you guys know the schedule because this is going to be good. We're almost done. All right. See, this is going to be good. Y'all, I've had some great conversations with you already, so this should be no problem at all. This is going to be fun. I'm going to go ahead and just ask you some of the same questions I've been asking some of the other elders. So I'd like to start just by getting to know you, who you are. Tell us about your family, how long you've been going to Johnson Street, and kind of just fill us in a little bit. Who wants to go first?
All right. Well, Tracy and I have both been here since 1996, but Tracy actually started in 72. So that's she grew up here in this church and was very involved in the youth group, and then she went away to Lubbock Christian, and that's very fortunate for me because that's where I met her, and we got married there and spent a few years away, 7 years in the Metroplex, and then we came back, and so we've been here since 1996. And we have two boys that are both grown. Brian is in Atlanta, Georgia, working for the CDC. And Brandon, and he just recently moved. And Brandon also is married to Jessica, and they also recently moved to Jacksonville, Florida. So we've had a lot of people ask us if we're packing our bags to move that way too. And we said, we're not going anywhere yet. So we're not in any hurry.
And Brandon is now a pickleball pro.
Yes, he is a pickleball pro. So if you ever need, and tennis, so if you ever need pickleball lessons, just he'll probably come all the way back here to help you. And I wanted to also mention, and this may be something that a lot of you may not have known, we actually had a little girl before Brian, and she was born at 25, 26 weeks, and she lived for 12 days, and that's when we were in the Metroplex. And that was really one of the biggest stories that helped shape our faith because of the way we were ministered to by our church family. So,
because y'all were really kind of alone. I mean, yes. Having come from here, y'all are in a big city and really by yourself.
Yes, that was very challenging to us, and we were our faith was tested and shaped very much by that experience. So,
and y'all have been married for how long?
For 37 years.
Wow, when's your anniversary?
So, June 22nd.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, good.
1985.
Nice. That's great. That's great. Well, we love your family, and I appreciate you being up here. Good. All right. Let us know a little bit about yourself, David. Jennifer?
Hi, I'm David Timm. This is my wife, Jennifer. We've been, I think, coming to Johnson Street for about 20 years. We've been married 27 years. In fact, we just had an anniversary, our 27th anniversary, about a month or so ago. And we, prior to coming here, we were members of West Angelo Church of Christ. And we have 4 girls, and one lives in Carrollton, one in McKinney, and then one lives here, Macy and Stephen. And, of course, our youngest daughter lives in Lubbock. And she's in Italy right now. And
pray for her.
Yeah.
Was that hard to let your 25-year-old go to Italy by herself?
So hard.
Man.
So hard, yeah. I'm still struggling, but we're good.
Yeah, that's great.
Good.
Okay, so, and you've been going here to Johnson Street for about how long?
About 20. About 20 years.
About 20 years. Now, both of you became elders, 8 years ago?
Yes.
Yes.
Y'all were in the same group
Yes.
that came on.
Yes. So at that time when we joined, we were the young elders, and so now we're in Mitch's category now. Since we have the new ones, we're the old elders. So we're in the old elders, with Mitch and some of the other men. Yeah.
That's great. I'm glad I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Well, I know that when y'all came on into the group, I know you probably had some different ideas about how all of it was going to play out. I know that y'all have been through some challenges and some difficulties. Y'all have really bonded together as a group. And whenever we came in, I told Shelley, whenever I first met you and spent time with you, just how great y'all were and how great the group was and how y'all love each other so much. And so tonight, I just wanted to hear a little bit of your heart, with the experience that you've had over the last 8 to 9 years. Who is it in your history that has really kind of served as a model of what this whole idea of elder really is all about? Who has that been for you? Has there been somebody that stood out above the rest? Has it been a couple of people?
Well, for me, I had a lot of good role models, especially my grandparents on maternal and paternal side, wonderful grandparents. And then, and same with Jennifer, we were blessed to be raised with our grandparents. So they were a powerful force, I think, in helping shape our spirituality. Of course, my parents were too. As far as particular elders, when I was reading one of the questions that says, of all the elders you have known, who would be your example and why? And there was 3 at West Angelo Church of Christ, Buster Hugel and Morris McFadden and Francis Smith. And of course, they were all retired about the time I was kind of coming of age and trying to develop spirituality. But, I don't know that I ever had to ask them for advice or seek out some information for them, but they were just wise and they were very caring. They were complimentary and very encouraging. At West Angelo on last Wednesday night of every month, we had to get up and lead singing, and even though I always read for 4 years, led number 25, I come to the garden alone for 4 years straight every Wednesday, I think. They always said, well, you did a good job. And so they were very kind gentlemen. And I remember when I became of age and, my parents divorced, and I kind of went rogue for a few years. But I remember sitting I'd bought a house, I was about 25, and I'd kind of strayed a little bit. And I was sitting home on a Sunday night watching Cheers, and the doorbell rang, and it was Francis Smith and Morris McFadden, and they came in. I wasn't chastised. They just came in and said, how are you doing? And we just visited a while, and they just said, wow, we really miss you at church. And so that was a very good elder role that I need to emulate, because they were certainly good role models.
They were gentle. Yes. They weren't harsh at all. They really cared about you. Wow. David?
All right. Well, certainly I would have to probably mention my grandfather and my father both served as elders. And so growing up, I saw that as a role model, young and getting older, but I didn't really fully understand the weight of the responsibility that elders bear, making decisions that affect the future of the church. And so I really didn't fully realize that until I got really involved in this church. And really, a couple of the elders that I'll have to mention, Kirk Hawkins, he made me teach one quarter, and of all the things he picked was the minor prophets. So, and if any of you've ever taught the minor prophets before, that was a pretty challenging first assignment. But he encouraged me, and I appreciated that, because he expressed faith in me, and he kind of really encouraged me to get out of my comfort zone. And of course, I'd been teaching in public school, but teaching in public school and teaching Bible class with your peers and then other people who I respected deeply, that was a challenge. But he encouraged me, and I appreciated that. The other one that I absolutely have to mention is my father-in-law, Ed, and I don't want to tell on him a lot, but I know that he has been an incredible example of serving God humbly and serving God with everything that he does in his life. And I'm going to try not to make my wife sad, but I just have to say this because I've always admired him deeply for this. He personally showed me what it was like to love his wife from the day I met them until the day that she passed away and left this earth. He treated her with the deepest respect and love and dedication. And I think if there's an example of how a husband should love his family and his wife, that Ed did a fantastic job.
And I know at least one of most of your parents. I don't think I've ever met any of your folks, but I know that you come from pretty strong, opinionated, solidly wise people. And I see that. I see it in the decisions that you make and kind of how you interact with our people here. I see a grace in all of you. I see a gentleness, and that's what's interesting is that whenever you guys were chosen to be elders, I know there was probably some apprehension there, thinking, oh no, what am I going to have to learn how to do? I got to start. But y'all were already doing probably a lot of the things that you needed to be doing before you even got here. And so that leads me into my next question is who do you think was probably the most impactful on your faith growing up? That person that really had maybe shaped your belief system the most. Who might that be?
You want me to go first? Or?
You know, back in the
Mike, though, if you could put next to your mouth there.
back in the late 70s, when I was going to going to West Angelo Church of Christ, Portis Ribble had been the minister that I'd grown up with, and he taught a counseling class at Southwest Bible Institute. And so I went to that class for several years. I went to a personal counseling class. F.P. Groshans and Brenda were going to that class as well. And our class would start off at about 5 or 6, and then it would, before the semester ended, we'd have 25 or 30. But I listened to Portis Ribble growing up. It was my main preacher, and that was probably the most influential. And then in my late teens and early 20s, that personal counseling class that I had with Portis, where we could just discuss biblical issues, questions we had, questions about faith, and we talk about our fears and our joys, and it was a very close-knit class. Cheryl knows kind of what that's about too. But I would say Portis, if I was going to name one particular individual, it would have been Portis Ribble.
Yeah, we had a lunch here a while back and had several ministers from the area, and Portis said a few things, and he has this command of a room.
Yes.
When he speaks, people would listen, and I didn't know him that well, but I can see how impactful he might have been.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for that. David?
Yeah, I have really tried to narrow it down to one person, and maybe I'm going to cheat, but I just can't, because my faith has been shaped in many different events throughout my life by many different groups of people. And when I try to think of one that was the most impactful, I really can't just pick out one. It's been a combination of the people that have ministered to us in our time of need, the people that no matter what, they would lift us up when we were having a hard time, or they would check on us, or they would do things for us if we needed them to. And of course, the ministers over the years, I have been very blessed to get to hear many very talented ministers over my lifetime, and it's really been a combination of not just one person, but men and women, Bible class teachers when I was a young kid. It's like I said, I really can't narrow it down to one. It's just been a combination of all those people that I look back on my life that have affected me in different ways. So.
And you grew up in California, right?
Yes. And
I'm not saying that as in that's a negative. Okay, see, Paul did too. So you have at least one person out there that can.
Well, and I did grow up in California, and that's maybe another thing that a lot of you may not have known. I grew up in a small farming community in central California, and it's really very similar to this area in a lot of ways. The agriculture was the main thing, and lots of very conservative churches that, and that's what we did when I was growing up. Was we did, if the church was doing something, we did it. And so, as a whole, my experience growing up was, if the church is gathering together, that we're going to be there. And so, and the people that were all part of that, starting from the classes when I went to when I was a little kid, just the ones that were always there, and their example of being there no matter what, unless they were so sick they couldn't be there. And so I grew up in California and moved out here when I went to Lubbock Christian, and pretty much been here ever since.
So even though there were people specifically that fed into your faith, you were really shaped by the community of faith.
Yes.
Your congregation, your church.
That's probably, to sum it all up, it was the community of the church that we were involved in at the time that overall would shape my faith. And I don't know if that's just the nature of who I am, or if that's just kind of how I'm wired.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how it's worked for me. So.
Yeah, that's great. Real quick, I'm going to let you know this right here. If you are interested in asking a question towards the end, take a picture of that or just hold it in front and you'll be directed to a form. For those of you who may not know how to do that, talk to a younger person on your row. They'll help you out. We'll go to our next section. This is an interesting question that both of you agreed to answer. So I'm going to ask you to answer it. What is it that keeps you awake at night? Whenever it comes, I mean, there's a lot, but when it comes to, I guess, Johnson Street, maybe the world, the future, what is it that keeps you awake at night?
Well, sometimes Jennifer's snoring.
You have to use it.
Sometimes Jennifer's snoring, but
I
I can't believe
it's a real gentle snore.
Just put it right there. There you go.
There's lots of things that keep me up at night. There's some nights after we've had some elders meetings where we've talked about some things that could be controversial or things like that. Sometimes it's a little bit harder, getting to sleep after that. If we've had a long meeting or something that might be controversial. Sometimes that does. Sometimes what keeps me at night is something I might have said to someone that might not have come out exactly the way I wanted, or sometimes things that keep me up at night are some things that I should have said and I did not. So, those are things. So, sometimes as many of you know, you'll wake up maybe at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and you hash those things out. And so sometimes those do, but it doesn't happen that often. One thing I have enjoyed about this church, this kind of gets off the subject a little bit, but when we first joined, I had some guys that say, hey, we need to help opening and closing the church. So I got involved there, and then they got me involved teaching, which I've never been comfortable teaching a Bible class before because I'd never done that before I came here. But there's a lot of men that at this church that have, and women that have served as role models that I've watched them ever since I've been here, and none of them have let me down. And a lot of good fathers, men here that I would gladly have as a second father, and some women here that are just very, very wise. And so, for the most part, there's not a lot that keeps me awake at night, but sometimes, and of course work does, business does, but by the bags under my eye, you can tell that there's some things that keep me awake at night.
I really don't generally, and I don't know if this is one of those gifts that God has given me, but I have a tendency not to worry a lot. I'm pretty good at letting things go most of the time. But there are times, like when David was talking about some of the elders meetings that we've had, where we've had to discuss things that are really challenging, that we know. I mentioned the weight earlier about when we make decisions that we know are going to possibly affect the condition of the souls of our sheep. That is a difficult thing, and of course we always pray, and that's one thing I think that helps me release things, is that we when we talk about really heavy things, we really stop and take time to pray, and sometimes in the middle of a conversation we'll stop and pray for something that's pretty heavy, because we don't want to wait till the end to pray for that. We'll go ahead and pray for that. And I think that the amount of prayer that this group does is amazing, and it is definitely a praying group, and I think that's really what helps me to be able to let things go. But sometimes, and David mentioned the missed opportunities. There are times where I think, well, I should have done more, or I should have, when God opened that door for me, I should have gone through the door and done it. And so those things sometimes do wake me up sometimes, or keep me from sleeping. But for the most part, I'm pretty good at letting things go. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's one thing I really appreciate about our leadership here is there is such an awareness of kind of how they interact with our people. And if there is something that concerns you, I should have, or maybe I should have said this. I've seen y'all at times go to those people, and even if you're trying to make it right or clear up some things, y'all are bold enough to do that, and that in itself speaks to me, and I think that's something that's pretty remarkable in today's age. Moving to the next question, I know there are things that may keep you up, but what is it that's really I guess one of your biggest passions or even burdens for ministry? What is it that really kind of motivates you, and what would that be?
Well, there's a couple of things that I'm really passionate about. One thing is music, and for most of you that don't know me, I listen to music all the time, and I wake up with a song in my head almost every single morning, and most of the time it's songs that we are singing at church. One time it was Neil Diamond. I'm not sure how that happened, but I love music, and I love the way that it touches people's souls like nothing else can. And so I love that we include so much singing and music as part of our worship. And so really worship together, but really with a lot, the music part is the part of worship that. And I love the teaching, and I love the study and the lessons, but there's something about music that touches my soul in ways that other things don't. And so, but also another part of our church that really has touched me, maybe even more than the music part, is the fellowship that is involved in our small groups, because we have had some really, really tough things happen to lots of the people in our small groups, and we love our small group, and we love each other, and we reach out to each other, and we pray for each other every day, and we even have one of those things that you send out on a certain app that if somebody needs prayers right then we'll send it out and we'll stop and pray individually. And so this I personally can't recommend highly enough, if you possibly can figure out a way to get involved in a small group. It is such a great thing, because we encourage each other so very much. And so
and y'all small group y'all really have been through so much,
yes,
and have helped each other through so much that it really is probably just like a family.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you. Thanks, David.
As far as a ministry burden, nothing really comes to mind. But now, as far as passion, I think Kirby Hartman and I were recruited to be on the missions committee by Bramhall, Wayne Bramhall, years ago. So I'm on that committee, and so that's been quite a journey. Working with the missions committee, and we have some very good, passionate people in that ministry. I've enjoyed that, and made a trip to Guatemala and Honduras with a couple of men, about 15 years ago, and that kind of lit my fire there as far as Guatemala and the Honduras missions there. And we were involved in a small group for several years, and then we kind of opted out, and we joined another one, and then we're kind of getting together with different couples, but not on a regular basis. But I enjoy that, the one-on-one with the other families. And then me and David Hettick and Michael O'Brien kind of started a men's hiking group a couple of years ago. So we've made it up to New Mexico twice, and we average between 15 or 20 members. Phil helps with that and goes to town, brings in Krispy Kreme donuts and
Thanks,
watermelons after eating.
You're really
canned
roughing
food.
it, I'm sure.
Yeah, we do. And so the great thing about that, we just get to know a lot of the men better one-on-one, that we wouldn't have known a lot of these men as well. So I've been kind of passionate about that.
Yeah, and y'all do that every other year, and we were just talking today that you might be able to do it next year. You're just not really quite sure how that works out.
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah. But I know that there have been several guys who've gone. Liam and I have wanted to go, but we were unable to do it the last time you went. But I know that the stories that I hear coming back from that have all been, they've just been so good. And there's something about, guys getting together in the middle of nothing, just being together and experiencing God's beauty. So, yeah, I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed that part too. So that's been a great thing, and I look forward, hopefully, to get to doing it this next summer too.
So going in from that into the last question before we get to our audience questions. I know y'all are excited about that. We all have our spiritual gifts that we bring to the table. We have those gifts that are given to us by the Holy Spirit, and I just wanted to ask you guys specifically, what do you think your gifts are? What is it you think that God has blessed you with whenever it comes to how you can kind of help build up the body of Christ here?
I would say one of mine would be encouragement, and once again, I feel God has gifted me with that because of all the examples growing up of people that encouraged me. So I think that is one of my gifts that I still work with and try to improve upon. Serving, because it brings me great joy. I think that's what God wants us to do, is to serve others. And mercy. And that is a gift that I probably cherish the most because I feel God has so much mercy on me and the things that He overlooks, and because He overlooks so many of my faults and things like that, it's easy for me to have mercy on others because there's been so much mercy shown me. Yeah. And then discernment. I'm still working on the teaching. And that's one of the things about joining this church is, even though I'd never taught a Bible class before, I think Don Foster had to be out of town one weekend, and he hit me up and gave me some notes and just said, hey, the only way you're going to get good at doing it is to do it. And so I'm still working on the teaching, still not as good as some of the other men here, but that's one of the gifts that I'm working on.
All right. Certainly, I mentioned Kirk earlier about the fact that he encouraged me, kind of like Don did, I guess, with you. And I don't know if I consider that a gift to teach, or maybe just the gift that being willing to teach, maybe being nudged by the Spirit to be accepting to do that. It's very humbling to teach because, as I mentioned earlier, there's so much wisdom in this congregation, and to be honest, it can be a little bit intimidating sometimes because I don't know all the answers, and I freely admit that, and so I really enjoy the teaching because there's so much wisdom that I can learn, and you could probably say the same thing, that as the teacher we end up learning probably as much or more than the student, because by the time we finish working through our class, we share so many things together that help us think of things in a different way. So I would probably consider teaching. And it's funny because when I was growing up, my dad was a teacher forever. And of course, growing up, I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm not going to be a teacher. And what have I done my whole life? I'm still teaching. So, and I love it. And it's been a huge blessing to me to get to know so many people. In fact, Tracy and I both teach, and we've looked at the fact that has become a gift, because He has put us in a place where we can serve others, and that's actually been our mission field. Is every day we go and we help serve these kids, and we look at that as our mission. Another gift may be I'm very patient, sometimes to a fault, and of course not perfectly patient, because I have to confess here, I'm not very patient when it comes to losing playing cards. So I'm just a little competitive. So, but most of the time when it comes to people, I'm very patient, and because I know that, kind of like you were saying, that God is very patient with me, because sometimes it takes me a long time before I will release my will and let God do with me what He wants to. So, and I guess.
Yeah, that's great. And you guys humble me, because I only have the spiritual gift of criticism, and I see the mercy, I see the wisdom, and it's quite amazing. You know, I'm trying to get a hold of all of the questions, and I'm having a little bit of a difficulty. So give me 1 second.
So he's got these questions.
No, the ones that you're about to be asked by our audience.
The ones we didn't study.
The ones you didn't study. And it's coming here in just a second. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm almost...
Actually, it's me that does the snoring, by the way, not Jennifer. But,
And we have grandchildren and sons-in-laws.
yeah. And we have grandchildren and sons-in-laws.
There
too.
you go. All right, I'm really close. And I've got the spinning wheel. Do you have any of those responses there, Phil? Just want to... How many has Sam asked of the group tonight? Phil told me last week, he says, when I came in from vacation, I said, how did the Wednesday night go? He said, well, there's a lot of mean-spirited questions coming from our audience. And I'm like, oh no, I feel so badly that we made that a part of the evening. He said, yeah, listen to some of these questions. Because Phil was interviewing, he says, tell me what your hair care regimen is. And who does your hair? And that's Phil. And was it David Gay? Yeah. I don't have access to any of these. If you just, forward those to me. For some reason, I'm just not getting anything. But we do want to ask some questions, and we'd like you guys to feel free to answer. I know you may not want to, but feel free. I'm about to get those in just a second, I hope. I'll go ahead and ask a question while I'm waiting. And this was something that was asked last week that I thought was a really good question. What do you guys think your part is in this ministry with your husband? You know, as far as the wife of an elder's wife, what do you think your role is in this?
First of all, my number one goal is to not embarrass David. Honestly. I'm being very honest. Other than that, I think I'm supposed to use the things that I've been through in life that have been difficult to pray with and to reach out to those other, especially ladies who might be going through divorce or death of a parent and things like that I've been through. I feel like I have some compassion for that since I've done that. I feel a little more heightened sense of responsibility, actually, that I take very seriously. A responsibility to check on people, to I guess just be better at loving others. And I have tried to study more, and I have enjoyed our ladies' Bible study so much, and that's been really enriching for me personally. And not only the Bible study, but the relationships that are created there. And so I guess I feel my role is just a little bit more responsibility to love others better. Tracy, back to you.
I can't beat that. That's really good. I think my greatest role really is to support David, because that's why I try to listen, and he's really good about not telling me everything, which is good because he doesn't want me to carry some of the burdens, but I do try to listen when he needs someone to listen. And we're also involved in showers and things like that. I'm a little more involved with that than I was before, which is a blessing, such a blessing, because you meet spouses that come from other places, and it's been a really good thing. There's times that David and I have gone and prayed with people, and so I've had to get, that's a new hard thing for me originally, and it's been, something I can do.
And that's so important because, there are so many people in our congregation who find it hard to pray with just one of the men, but to have you guys there with them it's almost relieving in a way that they can do that. So I really appreciate you doing that. Okay, here's a question from the audience. What can we as a congregation do to help lighten those really heavy things that y'all are carrying?
Well, I know that most of you are already doing this, but we can feel when the prayers are being said for us, because we covet those prayers. We really do. And so just continue to pray for us. I know that's a big thing.
Well, and I agree with David. This congregation is already doing so many things, and prayer is a big part of it. And encouraging. We hear far more encouraging things than we do discouraging things. But so yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here's one. To Tracy and Jennifer, who have been the influencers of your faith? Who is it that's been in your life that's really influenced your faith the most?
I can't talk much about it, but absolutely my parents.
Yeah.
That's all I can do.
Well, I was raised in the church over at Northside Church of Christ on 29th Street. So, Lois. And so parents, of course, and grandparents and family. But I feel like David mentioned, I can't just name one person because I've been through, I had some lost years, and the people that kind of help bring you back from that are super special. And those were people I worked with and worshiped with in Waxahachie when I was teaching there. And so they're super special. And honestly, the people that shape my faith are a lot of them sitting in this room and on this stage. There are just so many who I love and respect and admire here. And it would just be hard to pick one who stands out because so many of these ladies and the men too have prayed for me and with me, and they're heroes to me of faith.
Okay, I think I can do more now.
Okay.
Okay. I would also have to say, you know, my parents for sure, but my parents' friends that I grew up with, that like our ladies class that I go to on Wednesday nights are a lot of my parents' friends. So, you know, Carla Smith has, you know, I could get emotional with just Carla, but Carla has, and she's really filled that void since I lost my mom. So she's a blessing. Frocka Harrington, Sue Sorrells, all my friends' parents, you know, that I grew up with. So there are a lot of the people that are my parents' age, they helped raise me. And so I love them, and they have had a great influence on me.
That's great. Okay, 2 more questions, and then we're done. Y'all are doing great, by the way. Softball question, and then we'll do a more of a serious one. All right, here we go. What hobbies do you enjoy doing outside of church? Okay, what are the things you love to do outside of church? Y'all can both answer.
I just love being outside, and one thing that we talked about earlier that you brought up was the hiking, and I love hiking, I love fishing, I love hunting, I love riding bikes, and we've been doing some bike riding. Gene Potter's joined us for some bike rides. I just like being outside and in the fresh air, and of course I like any sport there is just about. So. Oh, and I have to mention pickleball. In fact, I'm going to put a plug in for pickleball. Can I do this?
Yes.
We're in search of pickleball players to play with us.
And I've even thought, did you know that we can get 3 to 4 pickleball courts going on our gym floor
Yes.
in there?
I've already talked to Mitch about that.
Have you really? Okay. I measured it out. It's perfectly doable.
Yes.
Okay, good. And you're a pickleballer too?
Just very recently, and it's something I can do. I'm not very athletic, but I can do okay, and it's fun and something we can do together. And so again, we are in search of people that will play with us. So
that's great. Jennifer, are you ready to do that?
You ready, Jennifer?
Are you a pickleballer?
Yes, I'll figure that out. And
if I can do it,
well, you said you don't have to be athletic, so I'm in. I think I can do it.